What are we doing in the black community? The number one consumer of a Mercedes-Benz
It's us.
us. The number one consumer of a Gucci and a Louis Vuitton, us. And they don't even advertise. Why is it that in the black community, we are always the number one consumer, but we're not the number one creators?
So you just said it, the fact that there's consumers and creators. For so long, we assume success based on consumption.
Welcome to Closing Gap Podcast. We tell the truth about black wealth. I am your co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our host and owner of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton. And you are tuned in to WATV 94.9 on your FM dial. Also, you find us on YouTube at Closing the Gap, The Truth. Closing the Gap, The Truth. And also, you can find us at anywhere that you stream any podcast on iTunes, Spotify. Look us up, give us a listen, follow us, like it, and share it with somebody else. How you doing today, Mr. Allen?
Hey, I'm blessed and highly favored.
Amen, amen. And we are so glad to be here on another day and to bring the truth about black wealth. We strive to give you the information to lead and guide you to make great decisions. Not saying that we have all the answers, but we are trying to get you to examine where you are so that you can get to the one that has all the answers to guide you to see somebody that can assist you to help build your wealth here in this United States of America and abroad, wherever you may be listening, because we may have some international listeners as well. And right now, with what's going on with tariffs and President Trump and the financial markets, it is important. It is incumbent upon us to work the plan that we've been trying to tell everybody to get.
Yes, sir.
We've been talking about that. That's how we began the year off. Why did we begin the year off like that? Well, we're not so wise within our own minds to do this, but we believe that God has enlightened us to bring this type of information to you. Myself as a preacher and pastor, and then Mr. Hamilton as a business owner and wealth advisor. There are just certain things that we have knowledge of, just within our respective careers and what we do. And first of all, we always go to God and we pray and we ask God to lead and guide us in our endeavors first and foremost. And that is why we are here on this podcast and on the radio show, is because God has led Mr. Hamilton to bring this information to you all. And I've been blessed enough to be alongside him to do so. So we have not been telling you to put a plan together for no reason. We've been doing that, first of all, because God led us to do that.
Yes, sir.
Right. Well, as we got together and began to talk about the show, first thing I said, hey, what's the plan?
Yes, sir.
What's the plan? Gotta have a plan. Gotta have a plan, right? And then now it's even more important. Do you have your plan? Have you laid out a plan? And are you being patient and working within that plan?
Yes, sir. Well, like I said, they say most people don't plan to fail, but they do fail to plan. And right now, it's showing. People are feeling it. If you had a plan, you're not feeling it so much. You're just basically doing some reallocation and some reassessment to see what adjustments need to be made, if any. But if you don't have a plan, you're scrambling right now. Because like I say, it doesn't take a rocket science to see what's going on right now and see the effects of the tariffs and the taxes that are being placed on the American society. I mean, these are things that were talked about last year. I remember Kamala Harris specifically saying, in the election run, if these things were to come to fruition by the middle of next year, we would be facing a recession. The markets would crumble. And we're seeing, unfortunately, a lot of that play out in real time. And it's probably going to get worse before it gets better, because that's just the way things are. We're dealing with an unstable individual, to say the least. That's a little bit chaotic in decision-making and somewhat wishy-washy. And, if anybody understands the markets and how they operate and the reason why things are going the way they're going, because markets like consistency. Like all of us, we like stability in our lives. We like to know what's coming next so we can plan and prepare for it. The stock market is the exact same way. So when you create this uncertainty, when you create this chaos, we're seeing the reaction to the uncertainty that our future holds in this nation and abroad, because we're a global society now. You know, it used to be years and years ago, what happened in other countries didn't affect us as much as it does now. But with technology and the way we're a global society, and things that can happen in China, you know, are known here, you know, in a matter of minutes and seconds now, because of, you know, just media, television outlets and different things of that nature. You know, we have to be cognizant, and it's that much more important as to why we need a plan, which is, you know, why we were stressing it. You know, we were stressing it not because we were Nostradamus and knew,
Right.
you know, what was going to happen, but life happens and none of us are immune to life.
That is correct.
And regardless of what the event is, there's always going to be some type of event that takes place. You know, 5 years ago, we had another event. It wasn't a necessarily direct, you know, financially crisis,
Right.
but a pandemic caused a financial crisis. So something is always going to happen. Life is always going to continue to turn. So when you have a plan, it allows you to have some peace in the middle of the storm. And that's what I tell people. My goal as a financial advisor, I tell clients all the time when they come see me, say, Mr. Hamilton, you know, what is your greatest gift? I said, well, my gift is the ability to give you peace of mind. You know, giving you peace of mind around your financial situation and circumstances. When you know that you have a plan, and regardless of what happens in the markets, in this society, you know that you're on solid ground and you have a stable foundation in future. You're not going to run out of money regardless of what happens in this lifetime. You go to sleep with a different kind of peace. You know, and that's the kind of peace we want everybody to have. But it only comes with having a plan.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And so that's what all we've been trying to do is give you the plan. Or for this show, we're talking about tactics, right? And so this show, we're talking about taxes, tariffs, and tactics. And so a plan is a tactic by which you are going to attack a specific thing or to protect yourself from, right? And so that's all Mr. Hamilton does consistently within his business, is as a financial advisor, is to draw up a plan based on your life and where you are and what your goals are in life, then match that up with what may happen or will happen, historically has happened in the financial markets and in the world. You also look at Mr. Hamilton, he takes into account what's going on in the world, who's in the leadership, and what are they prone to do. We knew from the start the Project 2025 was out there. We knew from the start what President Trump said that he was going to do. We knew from the start, as you said, what Vice President Kamala Harris said would happen if President Trump got into office. What are we seeing now? We are seeing these very things happening now. And many of us don't believe it until we see it. Well, now you're seeing it, right? Now you're seeing it. And we're not coming on here to beat you across the head, tell you I told you so. No, we are coming here to tell you, yes, we did tell you so. And we are telling you again that it's not too late to put together a plan.
Yes, sir.
Yes, even after you get hit in the mouth, even after things change within your life and you weren't as prepared, it's still not too late to put together a plan. What will be your tactic now for the future of your life? We know that we are in this tax season right now, right? It's almost time to finish filing taxes. Well, it's never finished. You're also process. Yeah, ongoing process. But we know that April 15th is usually that deadline to file your taxes. And what we have to realize, what I think we need to also help the people see, is that taxes are what fuels the country.
Yes.
Right. And the tariff, as many of you have seen on the news and various things, we said that tariffs are taxes. They are taxes on goods and services, and they cause the price of things to either rise or go low. However, the tariffs are put in place. But taxes are how this country is fueled, how the world is fueled, right? How we conduct business. And income taxes is one of the main ways that the United States makes its money. There's statistics from Pew Research that talks about those things, that how much money is paid out in in taxes in the world. And so we want you to realize that within your plan, you have to constantly go to a good tax preparer, CPA, whatever the case may be, to get your taxes filed and set up things that are advantageous for you.
Absolutely.
The tax code is for our benefit. They say it's getting bigger and bigger, but what we have to realize is it works in our favor. And so, Mr. Hamilton, if you could, just give us some highlights on what are some things that our listeners need to understand about as they get ready to file their taxes or finish filing. And we know some people have already filed, and we'll circle back and talk about what you should do if you're getting a return or if you have to pay taxes as well.
You know, one of the biggest things that I've noticed just in my life as being a financial advisor and working with people is that, you know, making sure if you have a spouse that y'all on the same page. You know, you just simple things, of course, because there are different filing statuses. There's single, there's, married filing separately, there's married filing jointly. And there's pros and cons, to each one. Usually married filing jointly is going to give you the most benefits. But you'll be surprised as to how many people are filing, married but separate simply because they're trying to keep their partner out of their business, or they're thinking that's going to keep their partner out of their business. When really, they're just costing themselves more money. And the lack of planning, and it really stems from a more situation than not, a lack of education, a lack of seeking professional help. One of the things that we're big on, we talk about all the time, is seeking professional help, not just going along to get along, not just doing something because everybody else is doing it that way, or that's the way you did it 5 years from now, or 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Always getting an assessment and analysis as to what is the best way for me to be doing things right now. Unfortunately, I talk to people all the time, and one of the biggest complaints I hear people say, today, because of the cost of cost of goods and services and inflation, you hear people all the time saying, well, Mr. Hamilton, I don't make enough money to save for retirement. Well, I always tell myself, well, you don't plan on retiring, then do you? Because you got to plan for what you want to have happen. Because if you ain't planning for retirement, then you won't see retirement. But then I turn around and say, Mr. Hamilton, well, I always hate it because I have to pay too much in taxes. I'm like, well, do you understand and realize one of the biggest tax deductions that most people have that's right in front of them is being able to save for retirement? If you're under 50 years of age, the IRS allows you to be able to defer $23,500 per year into a 401k, 403b, or 457 retirement account. If you're self-employed, that number is even greater if you have a SEP or a solo 401k or something of that nature. But understanding that you can actually save money for your retirement and get a tax deduction while doing it is something that most people don't realize. I'm like, well, if you paid $5,000 in taxes last year or $3,000 in taxes, well, you could have just deferred that $3,000, lowered your tax bracket by $3,000 if you'd have deferred it to your 401k, and all of a sudden you didn't have to get IRS anything, and now you have $3,000 that's growing in the market for your future that you can now come back and access down the road. So just understanding the tools that we have available. If you're over 50, they even give you catch-up provisions for all those people who haven't, been saving into their retirement account. Okay. And all of a sudden you say, you know what? I need to catch up. I need to put away. I need to make up for lost time, because none of us probably start as soon as we need to.
That's right.
But, it's better late than never.
That's right.
So they do allow us to have a catch-up provision where we can actually defer an additional $7,500 on top of the $23,500 that they already letting us save. So you're talking about $30,000+ that you can save into a retirement account on an annual basis that is a dollar for dollar tax deduction for you on your taxes. These are things that are just the simplest ways to be able to take advantage and also do something productive for yourself. Because if I can save $1 today and then have $1 for tomorrow, I've automatically put myself in a much better situation than I would have been in. Because if I don't do that, that means I'm spending $1 today and I won't have $1 tomorrow. Yeah. So which one would you want to have? What situation do you want to be in? So just understanding the rules of engagement. And this is why, seeking that professional help is so important. Yes, you want to be able to save and maximize the situation financially and be able to find the best deductions and the best way to file your taxes and, be able to maximize everything that's going on in your life from a tax perspective. But working with that professional is going to provide you insight and information into hopefully maximizing that. If you're working with somebody that does taxes seasonally and they do something else, a majority of the year, but during tax time, they're filing, taxes and doing tax returns for $250. You just saying, well, I'm going to save, and they only charging $250, whereas the person I know that's a CPA, they charge, $700. So yeah, that person may be charging more, but if the person that's doing your taxes with $250 got you back $1,500, but the person that charges you $700, that's a CPA, puts you in a situation where you get back $2,000. Which one is the better value?
Right.
But it's understanding real value. Just because it's cheaper don't mean that it's better. You get what you pay for it most times in this world. So you want to be cognizant of that. Now, I'm not saying go out and hire a high-priced CPA just because.
True.
You want to vet whoever you're talking to. You want an analysis. You want some strategy around why you're doing what you're doing. And that's needed. But I can promise you, if you look at the studies, the benefit and value that you would get from someone who is a trained professional as opposed to someone who is just a seasonal provider of service is going to far outweigh and put you in a much better situation from a tax standpoint and help you avoid some of the pitfalls and the mistakes of that can happen with someone doesn't do it on a consistent basis. Simple filing errors and, simple mistakes that could be avoided when you have a trained professional eye looking at something. It's kind of like, somebody walks in the barbershop and I say, hey, give me a chance. I'm going to get behind the chair. I'm going to cut them up right quick. I'm going to give them a cut. Now, I ain't never cut a head a day in my life, but I've been in the barbershop my whole life and I've seen many, many heads cut. I've had my hair cut on many occasions, obviously, once a week for the last, I don't know how many years, but at no point in time have I held a pair of clippers in my hand and actually faded somebody up. You've been trained and have years of experience and expertise with that. Now, I might know what the end result is supposed to look like, but I don't know what to do to get that end result in the meantime. And that's why you always want to seek professional help to make sure you're doing the little things that you can be doing along the way to get the desired outcome you want to have tomorrow.
Yeah, that's good. That's excellent, because what we are trying to tell you is the truth about Black wealth is that Black wealth is built by gaining better information consistently and following that guidance consistently, right? Don't just go fly by the seat of your pants. Don't just go and try to find somebody that suits what you want and what you want to hear. But no, you need to find somebody that is truly educated in what they do and that truly cares about what they do, right? Too many times we have a lot of people that like some things and want to do some things, but they don't put in the work that needs to be done.
Absolutely.
This is why even on job applications, I talk to some of my clients and even younger people that I mentor and say that the thing that why people ask what level of education you have, do you have a high school diploma, have you been to college, is not so much that it says that you know how to do the job per se, because you have some people that are educated in something that still don't do the job right.
Absolutely.
But what it does say is that you have made the necessary sacrifice to strive to educate yourself in whatever subject matter that is that you are trying to go into, that you care about getting the necessary education and whatever accomplishments that are needed in that specific field. Much like we talked about this different series of wealth advisors, right? And different qualifications that you can get in those things. So make sure that you find a professional. And when we say professional, somebody that actually knows what they're doing and that cares about what they're doing. And then if they care about what they're doing and care about getting the necessary qualifications for the job, then what does that tell you? That tells you that the likelihood of them caring about you and your taxes and your plan will be highly likely, and they are going to do what's in the best interest of you because they've done what's in the best interest of them. See you back shortly. Welcome back to Closing the Gap Podcast, Truth About Black Wealth. I am your co-host, Mr. Eddie Richardson, here with our host and owner of Hamilton Wealth Advisors, Mr. Wilbert Hamilton. And today we're talking about taxes, tariffs, and tactics. Taxes, tariffs, and tactics. And so you are tuned in to WATV V94.9 on your FM dial. And also you find us on YouTube at Closing the Gap, The Truth. And also anywhere that you stream your podcast, you can find Closing the Gap Podcast. And we appreciate you listening. We appreciate you subscribing. We appreciate you sharing it with somebody else. And we pray that the information that we've been able to disseminate throughout this year and thus far and going forward will continuously be beneficial for your life. We've been talking today and dealing with some taxes and thinking about taxes, tariffs, and tactics, having a plan, and the tariffs and what's going on is affecting everything about us. It's affecting our taxes. It's affecting our retirement. It's affecting our portfolios and also causing a little angst in the community right now, right? People are concerned, they're worried, they don't know which way to go and which way to turn. And in thinking about that, I thought about, Jesus as he was in the world and the book of Matthew, when some of the people there, they tried to trap him up with about money. And he said, hey, look, render unto Caesar what is his. It's Caesar's face is on that money. So whatever he requires of you, you have to render it. And so we have to pay taxes. You gave us some good insight earlier about how the system is set up, that while Caesar does, the government does, they require us to pay taxes, the government also gives us some ways to avoid the payment of taxes as well. And so with that in mind, also, I'm sure that there are some ways that even though tariffs and taxes are, somewhat regressive to us and seems as though they're depleting our funds, that there are some ways that we can kind of safeguard ourselves from some of these effects, so if you will, can you talk to us about our retirement, and in situations like this, how can we kind of safeguard our retirement from the effects of what is going on in the public right now?
It's always ironic, and when the answer is a whole lot simpler than what people want to believe. And I always tell people, how do you safeguard your retirement? Is having a conversation with a financial advisor first and foremost. And one thing in those meetings, I tell people, all the time, I say, look, there's a difference between retirement and investments.
Mm-hmm.
Retirement is what I need to maintain my standard of living for the rest of my life. And my investment portfolio is what I got left over after I've secured my retirement. Now, within my retirement, I may have obviously a mixture of certain types of securities in there, certain types of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds inside of, my portfolio that make up my retirement plan.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be built around maintaining stability and income.
Mm-hmm.
Because in retirement, I'm not looking to necessarily grow my portfolio. I'm looking to be able to create a portfolio that maintains consistent income for me for the rest of my life. So I'm not worried about, so if I put $100,000 in this portfolio and this portfolio sustains and gives me the income I want to have for the rest of my life, and I retire at 65 and it lasts me to 90 years of age, and I'm able to get the income that I need to retire on and be comfortable for the rest of my life, well, what I have left over after that, at that time period, does that matter as much? If that portfolio has now solved my problem, it's done exactly what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to provide income for me for the rest of my life. And if it's done that, well, that portfolio has done its job.
Right.
Now, the problem is people want to have their portfolio provide income, and then they want to have the portfolio growing like it's an aggressive, stock-based portfolio in the market as well. I'm like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. It's going to be some give and take. That that sword cuts on both sides. It's not a butter knife where it's only just you only cut from one side of that knife. And the other side ain't gonna cut nothing. It is really the market cuts both ways. So understanding what's available to you, understanding what types of products and opportunities there are out there.
Yeah.
We have technology and advancement is from a product standpoint and from a market standpoint, is far different than it was even 10, 15, 20 years ago. There are literally products out there that have principal protection, but still have stock market like income.
Okay.
There are products that are designed to give you guaranteed income for life while giving you some upside potential as well. These things do exist, but if you haven't talked to someone who has the ability to actually provide and offer those types of products, unfortunately, in my community, they think those products don't exist. Well, just because you haven't come into contact with it doesn't mean it don't exist. I've never seen a gorilla in real life, but I know they exist. I've seen enough on TV, seen them online, heard about what they have in zoos and parks and all that. So I believe there are real gorillas in this world, even though I've never personally encountered one myself. Unfortunately, we haven't encountered enough of what's available to us from a financial standpoint, because in our community, how many financial advisors have we actually met with? So unfortunately, people want to make assumptions based on what they've come into contact with, and that's what they make their assumption on what they can do. No. Don't limit what a professional can do based on you being a novice. That is contradictory. That is ignorant in a way to do. To make an assumption as to on how to handle something when you haven't got the professional help and you don't know all the things that are available. It's like there's a reason why, if you've ever seen a handyman or maintenance man, and you look inside their toolbox, they got tools and items in there that you ain't never seen and never used before, as me being a day-to-day dad.
Yeah.
I got the basic toolbox. I got the one that came from Lowe's. They got your standard socket wrench, your standard pliers. They come with your wire cutters.
Right.
They got your basic essentials. You got your flathead, your Phillips head. It got enough to change the life over in there. I got enough to be able to make it. But when you need those specialty tools to be able to put together a big project, well, guess what? I don't have that. So I got to call a professional in, and they bring out tools and resources that I didn't know existed. So for whatever reason, we have made the assumption that we have access to everything that the financial professional has, when in reality, you have nowhere close to having the number of opportunities. And with opportunities create choices. With choices, it creates different outcomes. So now I'm able to provide a broader range of outcomes based on what a person wants to achieve, because I have different products at my disposal. I have a different management style. So yes, there's only one stock market, but the way we use the stock market is completely different. You're doing the trading yourself with limited information and access. I'm doing the trading with the help of professionals who manage billions of dollars on a day-to-day basis. Who's going to have more access to information, me or you? Well, that's not to say that I'm smarter than you. You can be far superior from an intellect standpoint,
Right.
but because I have access.
Yeah.
We always say in this world, unfortunately, it ain't always about what you know, it's about who you know. So sometimes you got to know the right people in order to be able to get the right information to give you the right results. Like we talked about the previous, in the previous, conversation earlier today. We talked about the difference in having that CPA professional versus just having that tax preparer.
That's right.
And the difference that makes in your filing status and how much you actually get back on their return, or how much, from a business owner perspective, how much you don't have to pay back, in that tax return. So understanding what value we're getting in all areas of our lives and financial livelihoods makes a big difference into how we can help protect and safeguard our retirement and our most precious assets. I always say the most valuable thing to anyone should be their relationship with God, first and foremost. Then your family, then your money. Now, we can be honest and say for most people, they put their money before God.
Yeah.
Well, if you put your money before God, but you ain't getting no professional help, how much do you really love your money?
It's a major question.
I mean, it is. I just want to throw it back out to the people. If you don't have a relationship with Christ, and so obviously you got to be worshiping money in some way, shape, form, or fashion, or you worshiping the world and the world operates off of money, but you don't have a financial advisor, you hurt yourself on both ends. You ain't listening to the Most High, and you ain't listening to nobody who can help get you the most. So we missing it on both ends, and if we're gonna win, we got to win that one.
Yeah.
I want you to win that both. Preferably with Christ first. But at least if you're gonna win with Christ, come to us and help us get you some more money.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. And that definitely leans to what I said earlier about Matthew 22, when Jesus said, render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, right? Caesar has laid out a plan here. God is the one that provides for you, and then while you're in this world, Caesar has a plan that is there that you can take advantage of.
Absolutely.
But in order to take advantage of the plan, you have to have a conversation with somebody that understands what Caesar is doing, but yet their faith and their foundation is in Christ first.
Yes.
So that's a very important piece, man, because there's a lot of people that are out here that understand about financial markets and how to make money and do things. But sadly, some of these people will take advantage of you, right? Because their first goal is money and themselves.
Absolutely.
And they could care less about serving God or taking care of you as a person. So it's incumbent upon you to, first of all, make sure that your life is secure and your plan is secure with Christ first, right? And have that communication. And then once you do that, then God will lead you to the professional that you need to see. Preferably, I say, come see Mr. Hamilton. But if God leads you a different way, hey, that's ultimately what we want, right? We're mostly concerned about you having your wealth and your status and your foundation set, whether you come see us or not. We want you to come see us, but mainly our goal is to lead you to do what you need to do in relationship with God for you and your family. And so with that in mind, Will, as you talked about that too, about the gorilla and people not knowing and not believing in what they don't see, I think that's part of the issue also when it comes to Christ, when it comes to God, is because no man has seen him. And so therefore, when we come on here and we talk about, hey, you need to pray, hey, you need to get a relationship with Christ, it's so that you can manage your household, so that you can manage your finances well. They're like, well, where is he? Who is he? And because they haven't seen him, then now, okay, I hadn't seen him, so I don't think I can even need to see a financial advisor. I've been taking care of myself all this time. I'm the one that's earning this wealth. I'm the one that's managing this life, right? And so we take that same approach when it comes to our money as well, thinking that we can do it all. And like you said, you may be intelligent, but what do you have access to? And having access to Christ first is the main foundation that we all need in life, is having that firm foundation with God. As we got ready for this show and for taxes, tariffs, and tactics, the song came to mind, and the lyrics that say, build your hopes on things eternal, hold to God's unchanging hand, because that's what's going to be able to lead and guide you no matter how turbulent financial markets may be, no matter how turbulent things that come back and forth in your life, right? Because all of us have challenges.
Absolutely.
Right? Some of the challenges that we have in life are just due to life itself. We have sicknesses, ailments that we have to travail, and you have to have somebody that you can lean and depend on, and that person is God. And then in this turbulent financial market, you have to have somebody that you can lean on, and that's Mr. Hamilton, the Hamilton Wealth Advisors. So with that in mind, Wilbert, what would you say is a way that people can protect themselves? I know you kind of touched on them, but let's give a little more detail, if you will, how somebody can protect themselves in market losses.
It's always funny, ironic when you hear people that, don't have a relationship with Christ, and you talk about that, no man has actually seen God. But I promise you, any man that has had a relationship with God, they may not have seen it, but I guarantee they heard it when they felt it. In this life, seeing is not believing. For me, hearing and feeling is believing. And if you have a relationship with Christ, I can promise you, anybody who has one, they can tell you, I might not have saw it with my own two eyes, but I sure felt him, and I know I heard it. And because he talks to you on a constant basis, if you have that relationship with him. And, and I think that's kind of what leads into what you were saying as far as people being more willing to accept help. Because see, until you accept the help from Christ first and foremost, that's why they're not willing to, like you said, accept the help from others, such as a financial advisor, such as a CPA, such as a professional landscaper, a professional, suit maker, whoever it may be, in whatever profession it may be. Those guys like to cut their hair at home, but they're not professionals versus coming to the barbershop and getting a professional haircut. It's something about working with a professional and the feeling that you have when you've gotten a professional job done for you. I've never tried to cut my hair before, and I ain't gonna never think about trying to cut my hair, the little hair that I do have, but I remember being a young man, and I remember the confidence that you gain when you sat down in that chair versus when you got up out that chair. And something about the way you felt when you saw the lineup, when I saw them waves that was on top of my head, and just, when I saw the blend on the side, I'm saying, boy, you look all right, Don. That editing made you look like a good-looking fella. Now I'm ready to hit. I'm ready to go out into the world, and I'm ready to tackle anything in front of me. Well, I don't care. Whatever female comes across me, I think I look good enough to have a conversation because you've given me that confidence and that feeling inside that I couldn't give myself. And that's what God gives. God gives us a feeling. He gives us a motivation. He gives us a peace that surpasses all understanding that we can take into the world to be better. And this is why we say, it doesn't matter whether you talk to us or not from a wealth management perspective. My goal as an advisor in my lot in life is wanting to change the lives of and affect people that I never come into contact with. And I know I can affect far more people that I don't come into contact with than people that I do, because we don't have so much time on this earth. Yeah. We only have so many people that we're going to meet and come into contact with. But the impact that you can leave on the people that you come in contact with and how they can be a voice and take that out into the world is priceless. And that's how we can affect change, and that's how we close the gap. It ain't about me seeing everybody that's on the radio that has a financial question. Do I want to help as many people as possible? Absolutely. But if we can just evoke change and evoke the conversation, and you can go see somebody and get some help to put yourself in a better situation, now all of a sudden we have generational wealth starting to be created and left within our communities. And now our communities are being built up again. That means our schools are getting better. That means our churches are doing better, because the 10% of a little versus the 10% of a lot, it changes the game as far as what we can do in our community, as far as the number of people that we can help. So at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. It's all about, we want you to do better within your retirement accounts and your personal investment portfolios and within your plan from a saving, standpoint, but it's also you can affect the lives of people in a positive way. First and foremost, your family, and then for the rest of the people you come into contact with. So, that's why it's so important. And I take it so personally. And I'm extremely passionate about, what I do, because, I know my why. Why I do what I do, because I want to be a blessing to the people I come into contact with. And, what frustrates me with my own community sometimes is that they the ones I want to help the most, but they the ones that listen to me the least. It's ironic sometimes, but, as a pastor once told me, he said, I get up and I preach every Sunday. He said, I know I mentor, I'm out going to hospitals and nursing homes and hospices, and I do that all during the week to get up and preach my heart out on Sunday and give the people a message that I know God has gave me that he wants them to hear. And when I open up the doors of this church and I see nobody get up and come turn their life over to Christ, he said, it hurts me inside, because I know it's 5 to 10 people that I'm looking at that's supposed to be getting up, walking down the aisle to come turn their life over to Christ or coming for prayer or whatever it may be, and they don't move. And I feel like I failed. He said, but I had to learn. I can only do what God has called me to do. And I can, at the end of the day, I can now turn that back over to him and say, Lord, let your will be done, because I know I've done what you placed on my heart to do. That's right. And we're here giving you this information because God has placed it on our heart to give it to you. Now, we want to evoke change. We don't want you to just hear this information. We want you to take action. I'm going to be blunt with them. I'm going to let them know, like, look, we have signs in this world that, things are closer to the end than the beginning. Wars and rumors of wars, and we have, fires in places that we don't normally have fires, and you having floods and tornadoes and all these different things are happening. So when things start happening, God is trying to get our attention.
That's right.
He's trying to get our focus.
That's right.
And that's why it's so important to have a plan, a financial plan, but even a greater plan for your life, because we want to see you not just here, but on the other side. We'll be right back in a minute. Welcome back to Close the Gap, the Truth About Black Wealth, of course, here on V94.9 WATV. Of course, you can catch us on your podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you stream your podcast. Of course, catch us on YouTube. Like, share, and subscribe. We need you to support us so we can continue bringing you more content and information on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, because our goal is to change the wealth in the African-American community. We're here to close the gap. We truly want to close the gap. And we know we help close the gap by not just helping you and educate you from a financial standpoint, but we want you to, to benefit, and we want you to grow your relationship with Christ, because we think that's parallel.
Yes.
You can't grow your wealth and without growing your relationship with Christ, because I guarantee them bad habits that you're going to have, you're going to pick up if you ain't right with Christ, go eat into that money. So like wise man once told me, said, look, as long as you keep your character right, you never had to worry about your money. But as soon as your character go wrong, that money going to disappear.
That's good. That's good, Will. And as we were just talking, as we closed out, as you were preaching a moment ago, amen, hallelujah. We are talking about people taking their advice, people listening, people placing Christ at the center of their life as that foundation, lead and guide them in making the decisions that they need to make. It's paramount to the progress that we will have as a people. Right? Let me say that again. It's paramount to the progress that we will have as a people when we place Christ as our foundation. You won't have to worry about your taxes. You won't have to worry about the tariffs, because the tactic that you have laid in place is you'll have a plan that you will let God lead and guide you. I always keep a song in me at all times. You know what I'm saying? And there's a song we sang down at church in Akron, Martin Mission, by "Let Jesus Lead You." Let him lead you. He'll lead you all the way. And we talk about in that song how he led the various persons throughout the scripture, that no matter what was going on at that time in their lives, that the Lord would lead them to a successful end, right? That even when mistakes were made, that the Lord would come in and remove the mistake and be able to lead them to a successful end. The story of Adam and Eve not following the direction of God. Then he came in, they didn't follow his original plan. So he came up with another plan to lead them to success, right? Abraham, the same thing. Things were, the time when Noah was alive and it hadn't rained for years, and here it is, he's building an ark saying that it's going to flood, right? God was preparing him. And I want to stop right there with the story of Noah. That's where I believe that we have been right now, that we have been crying all this year. Get a plan, put a plan in place, see a financial advisor, no matter whether it's here or there. Go and get into a church, get into a community of people that you can pray with, that you can trust, that you can communicate with, that are going to assist you in your life. And that's how we close the gap and tell the truth about Black wealth, is building a community together, being next to people that care about you, and having your foundation rooted and grounded in Christ, and having a financial advisor that truly cares about you over caring for their own profit. And so we say that because God is leading us to do that, right? The same way God was leading Noah to build that ark to be able to save the people. That's the same way God has been doing with us. Now, I'm not saying that we're so much prophetic, as you said earlier in the show, not Nostradamus and any of that, right? Not tooting our own horn of any kind, but this is our calling. We are just trying to fulfill our ministry. We're just trying to be obedient to what God has called us to do. That is the main thing, the main goal of why we are here on this radio show, why we are here on YouTube, is to fulfill the calling of God that He has placed on our lives. And in doing so, we know that God will also assist you to fulfill your calling. God has a plan for your life. God has a plan that you will prosper and be in good health. And we want to see that, right? And we know that no matter what President Trump does, no matter what topsy-turvy storm goes on in this world, that God is still in control.
Well,
and if you would just put your hand in the master's hand and continue to build your hopes on things eternal, then you won't have to be as stressed about what goes on the news. You can watch the news and kick back and kick your feet up and go back in the kitchen and find you something to eat. You know what I'm saying? And find you a good drink and call up your church members and tell them, hey, you see that stuff going on in the market? Yeah, you worried about your retirement? You're like, no, I'm not worried about my retirement. Like, why not? Well, because I'm trusted in Christ and I have a good financial management company in Hamilton Wealth Advisors that has already sat down with me and we laid out a plan that will mitigate the losses in this current market. So, Will, I don't want to get too preachy right now, but I do think that that's important that because we want you to be at peace. All right, we know that we're calling you to be accountable, but within that accountability, there's a peace that is involved, right? Whenever I have some things on my to-do list, right? Like writing my to-do list can get stressful. Looking at it and writing it out can get stressful because it's like, oh, okay, I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to do that. But as I write that plan out and I develop the tactics to fulfill that plan, that every time I check one off, I get more peace. I get calmer. Right? Every time I get one off. And then at the close of the day, that if I've done 90% of what I needed to do for that day, or sometimes even 70% of what I needed to do for that day, I'm at peace because I see the progress that I've been able to make. And so that's what we want you to do is check off the things so that you can be at peace. Put a plan together so that you can be at peace. And when you're watching the news and all these things are going on, and as President Trump continues to sign executive orders and not put anything in the law, realize that you can be at peace because God is still in control and things can change at a drop of a dime. And so I want to stick right there for a moment. When we're talking about what President Trump is doing, he's signing executive orders. And we see the market is going up and down and taking a lot of losses. And what we want you all to realize that the truth about it is everybody in the world is not settled because none of these things that he's doing are law. And they can change at any moment. But if you have your tactic in place, you don't worry about how much it can flip.
You know how to take advantage of the opportunity when the opportunities are provided. So, people all the time, they want to, we call them Debbie Downers. It's always, they're always negative. It's always what's going wrong. And, one thing about having that relationship with Christ is learn to count it all joy and finding peace in the middle of the storm. And what that does, and most people don't realize, that gives you clarity to be able to see through a situation and see what decision do I need to make where I can take advantage of what's going on right now. The whole thing about planning, and I tell people, I said, the plan is not worrying about when something goes wrong. We're putting the plan in place knowing that something is going wrong. So when it goes wrong, how do we take advantage of it going wrong to come out better on the other end? And that's what sometimes people can forget when they don't have a plan and have never done any planning. See, when you've laid out a plan before and you've watched that plan and you worked that plan and you've seen that plan come to fruition, you've seen the benefits that came out of doing the planning. Now you're saying, man, if I plan more, I'm going to get better and greater results after the plan is over. But most people are so stuck on the fear and the paralysis by analysis of actually doing the plan, and then the discipline it takes to maintain the plan, they never get to see the benefits of the plan come to fruition, which that's where you learn the process is the gift. It's the journey, not even the destination all the time. It's learning that, but so now you have clarity. So now you're more apt to do more planning. You're going to plan it on a bigger and a grander scale. See, there was a time in my life where I planned to get my first car. And I planned to get my first house. Well, now the house and the car that I'm buying is different from the house and the car that I was buying 20 years ago. But that's because I saw the benefit and value in planning on getting the first one. And I saw what God blessed me with and what I learned from that process to help me build and plan and get the second one and the third one, and so on and so on. So we have to understand, and you have to do it in order to really see, to get the value out of it, so now we can use it going forward, because there's far more to gain than there will ever be to lose. Because when we're losing out on peace. We're losing out on prosperity. We're losing out on being able to be a blessing and be a gift and being able to have joy. Joy that, like you say, happiness is fleeting, but joy is eternal. Like I want some joy. I don't just want to be happy. And what's happened, because we don't do any financial planning in our community, we're always routinely happy with our financial position, but we never have any joy in our financial position because we never have any consistency and stability because we haven't done the planning.
Right.
So when we're in this situation that we're seeing the market going up and down and people are worried about what's going on in their 401k, and you should be worried. If you don't have a plan, you most definitely should be worried right now. But guess what? There's always hope, because it's never too late. As long as you got money in your account and you're not at zero and you're still working, so you're still saving, you got breath in your body, well, guess what? God is giving you the opportunity to make a change.
That's right.
But it's up to you to make a change. He's saying, look, I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make him drink. I'm here anytime you want me to be here. And nowadays, when we have so much access to information, there's so much access to opportunities. There's no excuse to not have your things together out of pure out of pure ignorance. Ignorance is no longer an excuse.
Right.
That is not a pass, because we have too much access to information now, where if you don't know something, you can literally Google it on your phone. You can literally type in on your phone, financial advisors near me, and it'll pull up 15 of them. You can type in African-American financial advisors and it'll pull up some. So there's no excuse not to be able to find or access someone or something that can give you the information you need to put yourself in a better situation, but you have to make the first step. And when we're looking at that, I've learned that with all the chaos that we've had this year, from it started off with the firings, and of course, the cutting of different programs, and the forced terminations of jobs and contracts being cut by the government when Trump first went over. So that was a lot of chaos. And then now you have the market chaos. Well, those things were really one and the same. We were telling people they need to get a plan in. It wasn't so the market, because the market was shaky at the time, because the market was still doing okay, but it's because you had a change in your life. This is just a different kind of change, because there's always going to be changes. That's why a plan is always needed. So this is why we were emphasizing, hey, you got to have a plan, because when you leave that job or leave that employer, most people don't understand. And I tell them all the time, I said, never leave your money in a place where you don't work no more, because now you don't have any control over that money. That employer still dictates what options you have available inside of your retirement plan. So if you have a 401k, or if you have a 403 or 457 account, or you have any kind of retirement account that's with a previous employer, you ain't there, so why your money there? Move your money to your own personal IRA. Get you some professional help, so now you can customize what you want to have for you, versus having to accept or take whatever an employer provides you. So I tell people all the time, I say, look, I'm a person, I've designed 401ks for companies and institutions and a number of different, places out there in the workforce that a lot of our listeners actually work for. I've designed those plans. There is no employer-based retirement plan that is going to be better than a plan that you can custom design for you. Because see, when I custom design a plan for you individually, I'm taking you into account. I'm taking when you want to retire into account. I'm taking your goals, your dreams, your objectives, everything that's specifically designed and catered to you. I'm taking that into an account. When you participate in the employer retirement plan, you have to get whatever that employer has put in place, and you have to take it. You may not have any access to that money. You have to go through them to get the money, and nobody wants to have to go through somebody else to get their money. Nobody wants to have to call the old job or the old HR director and say, hey, I need to take out some money. What's the process? Can you help me with that? No. Your money needs to be in an account that you are in control of, where you have direct access to, and you have your own private professional that's helping you make the necessary decisions that are in your best interest. So I tell people, I said, look, your 401k is what I call a passively managed account.
Okay.
Which basically means you have to select your own investment choices. You have to make your own changes to those investment choices. You control how much money you put into that account, and you dictate anytime you want to change how much is going into that account. Now, in your own personal IRA account, we do in my firm, we do what's called active management.
Okay.
We have actually money managers who watch and attend to our clients' accounts on an ongoing basis. So I tell people, do you want to be proactive or do you want to be reactive? See, when you react to the market, that means whatever you didn't want to happen, it already happened. And now you're trying to react to what you should do next. Whereas we want to be proactive because we've already identified things that could possibly happen. We've designed a plan around what could possibly happen. So when it happens, we've already prepared for it. So we've been proactive. So guess what? When the market takes a dip, we're not losing as much. When the market goes in upswing, we're taking advantage and making sure we make the money on the upswing. So the goal of an advisor will tell people, I want to lose you less and make you more. But if you don't have your money in a position that someone can help you, well, now you have to depend on yourself to self-educate, almost like self-medicating to solve your own financial problem. That's not a recipe for consistent success in a employer plan. So if you have the option to move, if you're over 59 and a half, a lot of people don't know. A lot of employers allow for what we call in-service distributions. The federal government allows for this. A lot of different employers allow. If you're 59 and a half and you have a 401k, 403b, 4%, you work for someone. A lot of companies allow you to do what's called in-service distributions. That means they allow you, while you're still working, to actually roll your money out of that plan into your own IRA plan. So if most people don't retire to average age is 65. But if I'm 60 years of age and I know my retirement date is 5 years out, well, I can meet with someone like Mr. Hamilton now. We can go ahead and move my money that I have out into a different situation that's custom designed for me, and I can have my retirement fast tracked. I don't have to wait until I get 65 and then leave the job and then move my money to just get started on my plan. I can go ahead and get a head start and a jump start, not just with having a plan, but with the plan plus the management. So you having a plan and being able to be proactive in your approach because you control your retirement. So when you have access to those in-service distributions, well, now you can move your money before you actually retire. When you have access to actual a money manager or financial advisor that can help direct you while you're working. So I meet with many of my clients while they're working. And of course, they have their 401ks that they're different providers on their job. And we sit down and we go through their 401k with them and help them select the best investments that would be the most suitable for them in accordance with their plan, as opposed to having them and leaving them alone to have to make those decisions. And what happens with most people is whatever they pick when they first start is what they end with when they retire. And a whole lot has changed. When I started the job at 35 and I retired at 65, a whole lot of life had happened over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
There's probably been, a marriage. There's been some kids. There's been, some retirements. There's been some college graduations. A lot of life has happened in those 30 years. So I have to be prepared to be able to put myself in the best possible situation. So if I haven't changed my investment allocation for 30 years, but life has happened over the last 30 years, what is the likelihood of me having success over all that time?
Yeah, it's lower. It's definitely lower when you do that. And then that's what ends up making people become reactive.
Exactly.
Right? Because they don't take the time and continue to examine the plan for long-term stability.
Yes.
Sustainability, I would mean. Not only stability, but sustainability. And I think what you have given us, Wilbert, is the type of conversations that you have. You gave the people a synopsis of, look, if you come to me, these are the type of conversations that I'm going to have.
Absolutely.
And what I like the most about it, and I'm a witness to it as well, but is, as you said, having people that are constantly paying attention to the market within the plans that you do here at Hamilton Wealth Advisors, because what that does is that is the proactive side.
Yes, sir.
That, yes, okay, it's okay to be reactive to certain things sometimes, right? Some things can catch you off guard, even within your plan. When you have your plan and then something changes, then you have to react to it. But if you're already with Hamilton Wealth Advisors, the proactive nature is already set in. But the main thing that we want you to do is never be inactive.
Yes.
Right? So it's okay to be reactive. We prefer that you be proactive, but there's a problem if you are inactive.
Yes, sir.
Because taxes are being taken out. The tariffs are a real thing right now, and you must have the right tactic to move forward. So don't be inactive in this time right now, but continue to build your hope on things eternal. Trust in God to lead and guide you. Trust in God, and God will give you the feelings, as you said earlier, to guide you to the right financial advisor and to lay out the right tactic to take care of you. Because God is a God that is always proactive.
Yes, sir.
He always has our best interests in mind. And as long as you put your hand in the master's hand, you will never have to be reactive to what's going on, because you have a God that is always active and taking care of you. And so we hope that you will listen to this show, share it with somebody else, subscribe on YouTube, and come and talk to Mr. Hamilton, Hamilton Wealth Advisors, so that you can have your plan in place to move yourself forward in the life and the plan that God has set for you.
See you next time.